Hi, I'm Mike Lee, author of Our Lost Constitution. I wanted to weigh in this evening to discuss one of the many issues in which the Constitution comes into play, but often in a way that isn't likely to be addressed in the courts and that needs to be addressed through the political process with active involvement of the American people. According to reports by the Washington Post this week, President Obama is considering efforts to escalate U.S. military involvement in Syria. Now, we're not sure what he's going to decide at this point. We're not exactly sure what he would justify U.S. involvement in Syria or escalating U.S. involvement in Syria on. But we do know that Bashar Al Assad is a ruthless dictator. Nevertheless, his current operations in Syria, as far as we know, are not posing any imminent threat to U.S. national security. In light of that, it's difficult to imagine a scenario in which President Obama could conclude that his Article II powers under the Constitution, designating him as the President of the United States as the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, it's difficult to imagine that he would be justified in just using his own constitutional authority as Commander-in-Chief unilaterally to get us involved in basically what would amount to another war. Normally, in order for that to work, there needs to be some sort of imminent threat to American national security, and we're not really seeing that out of Bashar al-Assad. So, bad guy, yes, but that doesn't necessarily give President Obama the power to take us to war on his own. Some might argue that the 2001 authorization for use of military force against al-Qaeda, or the 2002 authorization for use of military force against Saddam Hussein's regime in Iraq might somehow give President Obama the authority. But if you read those documents, they don't give the president just carte blanche authority to go after bad people wherever they might exist, nor do they authorize the president in any way to just go out and get rid of evil people wherever they might be, or to use the U.S. military for humanitarian purposes. Now, President Obama did rely in 2011 on a UN mandate for humanitarian protection to undertake some military action in Libya in 2011. I think the legal basis for that was very questionable, and I think as a matter of constitutional policy and sound public policy, I think that was a very bad idea to just rely on a UN mandate rather than going to the people's elected representatives in Congress and seeking a declaration of war at that time. In any event, in that circumstance, the proof is in the pudding. Libya is now in ruins, and it's become the seething hotbed for terrorism, which poses arguably an even greater threat to the United States than it did back before we got involved in 2011. And so, look, I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm not saying that I know what the future will hold. I'm not saying that I know what President Obama is going to decide. But I do know this, that under the Constitution, there is a shared power. There is some ambiguity in some respects because the president is the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, and that does mean something. At a minimum, it means that the president is able to direct our armed forces into conflict zones where he deems it necessary to protect the United States from an imminent threat to our national security. But under Article 1, Section 8, it's the Congress, not the president, that has the power to declare war. If we're going to get involved in a war in Syria, yet another war, this one being yet another conflict in a very dangerous part of the world, I think President Obama owes it to the American people, not only because of the Constitution, but also just because of the gravity of the situation, but especially in light of the Constitution. He owes it to the American people to make his case in an open public debate, the type of debate that can only be had in front of the people's elected representatives in Congress. Mr. President, I implore you, don't act unilaterally. Ours is not a government of one, and we certainly have no business getting involved in yet another war through your unilateral action. So please don't do that. Mr. President, if you're wanting to get us involved in this or any other armed conflict, please go to Congress. Do it the right way. Seek a declaration of war. Respect the Constitution. Thank you.